This is the Proud American Podcast, and I'm your host, Johnny Joey Jones. Memorial Day is intentionally a solemn reminder of the price men and women pay to keep this country safe and free. But that price goes beyond the ultimate sacrifice of giving up your life. It's a burden shared by the family and loved ones who go on living missing their hero. One of today's guests, Ryan Manion, is a successful philanthropist and Gold Star sister to Marine Lieutenant Travis Manion, who was killed in action in Iraq. Also returning to Proud American is a good friend of mine, Emily Domenech. Emily and Ryan have partnered to create the Honor Project, and I'm excited to welcome you both on. Ryan, let's start with you. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me.
So, we'll get to the Honor Project and the origins of which Emily has come on and told us about, and I'm excited to share that. But I would love to just talk for a minute about your journey with Travis Manion Foundation and your brother, this amazing Marine lieutenant who unfortunately sacrificed his life to, from what I've read, keep those that were with him that day alive.
Yes, so Travis was a first lieutenant in the Marine Corps. He was killed on April 29, 2007 on his second tour of duty. He was part of a MIT team attached to the Iraqi army. And on April 29th, he was out on patrol. His team was ambushed. Two of his teammates were shot. Travis pulled them back to safety and exposed himself a third time to push back the enemy, and he was shot and killed. He was the only member of his patrol that was killed that day, and he was awarded a Silver Star for his actions. And, after his death, my family and I created the Travis Manion Foundation because we wanted to make sure not just that Travis's legacy continued, but that there was a face and a name to this generation of men and women who had served and sacrificed.
That's an amazing story. I think it's, I always struggle with, I was in the Marine Corps, I was blown up, and I saw this happen, this sacrifice paid. And we're 20 years into this war, and it's almost like people think, it's like they see the movies and they hear the stories and it sounds the same. And it's not the same at all. Like, these stories are so impactful and they're so unique. There's 330 million Americans. Only a select few serve, and even fewer, thankfully, than that, give their lives in these amazing ways. I mean, there's no other way I know to describe it. To lay your life down intentionally, almost, and sometimes matter of factly, is just such an amazing thing. And I can't thank you and your family and my Marine Corps brother and your real life brother Travis so much for that sacrifice and keeping Marines safe. So that's the solemn part of Memorial Day. I had a guest on that said something like, hey, you don't know if you're supposed to visit a grave or go to a mattress sale. And it's kind of like we exist somewhere in between. A lot of us probably take advantage of a day at the ballpark or some hot dogs and burgers. And I'm sure for you, Ryan, it's a little bit of both. For me, it is. I take a lot of time to remember my brothers and sisters, but I also take time to enjoy it with my family. And being so close to the sacrifice, how do you experience Memorial Day?
I'm like you, I know there are some people that think that Memorial Day should be a somber, mournful day of recognition. And I don't agree. I think it's a day where we celebrate that these men and women walked our great country, celebrate the fact that they volunteered to step up and serve, and celebrate what they have allowed us to do, the freedoms we hold so dear. And so, of course, I have a personal connection with my brother being killed, but I mourn my brother 365 days a year.
Yeah.
Memorial Day is a day to remember, to honor, and most importantly, to share these great stories with others. We're so close to it, right? You have men and women that were your friends that didn't make it back. But for those disconnected from the military community, I feel it's our responsibility to share these great American stories of the men and women who sacrificed their lives for the freedoms that we all hold so dear. So I look at it as a day of education. Drink a cold beer, buy a mattress if there's a good sale, but take time during that day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, turn to your neighbor, turn to your friend and say, hey, I want to tell you the story about Travis Manion or Brendan Looney or any of the great Americans that have given their lives while serving.
No, you're absolutely right. And I love that. I mean, responsibility is a big tenet in my life. Sometimes I fail in my responsibility. Sometimes I'm late to an appointment like a podcast with some amazing friends. But all that being said, responsibility, man, that's a heck of a word there. And I love the way you frame it. I very similarly say it's my responsibility to take my family out and have a good time. And right when they are forgetting about the world, remind them why we're there, having a good time, and let it all come together and just give them the opportunity to appreciate that. And I think part of the problem in this country that's also a blessing, and I try to remind my brothers and sisters of this, is look, guys and gals, we go overseas and fight a war on purpose, voluntarily, so they can forget about it. Like that's the effect of us doing what we do, is that everyone at home doesn't have to think about it. It doesn't land on their doorstep. It doesn't have to affect their lives. And, after 20 years, it affects a lot more lives than probably even we would like. But that's kind of the way I bring it together and help guys and gals make sense of it. And Emily, you're on and you're doing just that. You're helping take that mantle and remind people of these men and women who have given their lives in service and are buried in Arlington National Cemetery, the kind of the holy land of military sacrifice. And I'd love for you to talk about what the Honor Project is and how you and Ryan partnered together for this.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me back. I was really excited to get to talk about my experience at Arlington Cemetery last year, where I got to visit graves on behalf of people who were unable to come to Arlington, largely due to COVID restrictions. But one of the things I learned in the process was that there really were hundreds of people, thousands of people really across the country who just can't visit Arlington on Memorial Day, who want to do something like Ryan said, who want to take an opportunity to honor the men and women who sacrifice for them, but don't really know how. I think civilians really do want to do the right thing to honor those people, but they often just don't know the right way to do it. So when I thought about this year, I really did want to build on my experience last year and to expand the number of graves we could visit and the number of people we could reach. And I knew I couldn't do that by myself. And I was lucky enough to know about the Travis Manion Foundation because of a mutual friend with Ryan. And I knew that with their kind of long and broad experience doing big events with volunteers, and really helping veterans connect in their local community, I knew they were a natural partner for this project. So we worked with Ryan and her really incredible team to build a platform for the Honor Project, where we'll have volunteers come to Arlington Cemetery, and they will take requests in advance for graves to visit, and our volunteers will go. They'll photograph the grave. They'll take a moment to learn the person's name. They'll place a commemorative flag, and then we'll share that photo on social media across Memorial Day weekend. So we're really hoping to visit 10 times more graves than I was able to visit last year by myself. And we're hopeful, frankly, that this will be a project that starts at Arlington, but eventually expands to military cemeteries across the country to give more people the opportunity to visit a grave and learn a name and take a moment to think of a stranger who sacrificed for them to enjoy their weekend and the rest of their life.
It's such a unique idea. And I remember when you were doing this, and like I said, we had you on the podcast, and all I could think about was like, wow, how can I help? How can I get involved? And so when you guys share these stories with people, is there a URL or a hashtag? Like, how can people go and track this and really become intimate with these folks that we're highlighting on that day?
Absolutely. So in advance, we have tons of volunteers, but if you know someone, you have a loved one who's buried at Arlington, you can register their grave for a visit at travismanion.org. And then over Memorial Day weekend, all the photos that we'll be sharing will be on the hashtag The Honor Project on Twitter and on social media. And then we'll collect all those photos at the end and share them on a platform on travismanion.org as well. So folks can follow along in real time on Memorial Day. I think that was one of the things that really made last year special, was that people could watch as individuals all across the country were able to honor their loved ones, and they could learn about them in real time. We'll be doing that over all of Memorial Day weekend. And then there'll really be an opportunity for folks to get to really know and study these names, if they want to go and look through every single one after the project is completed, you'll be able to do that too. To me, so much of this is giving the opportunity for one stranger to connect with another in that personal way. And that is really what I think makes it special and unique and different from so many other really incredible projects that honor those who served and who gave the ultimate sacrifice on Memorial Day.
You know, I follow you on social media, and you run. That's something you do. Something I can't do, and I kind of live vicariously through your runs sometimes. But I would assume you've continued to run through Arlington over the last year. And has those trips to Arlington changed for you? Like, how has this changed you as a person after a year after doing this?
Yeah, I've always visited Arlington. As you know, my grandfather and grandmother are both buried there, and so it's somewhere I go regularly anyway. But I will say that there were every time I've gone back over the course of this year, there are a handful of graves that I visited last year that really stuck in my mind, that I now always go back to. One in particular was an Air Force captain who was killed in January in Afghanistan, January 2020. He had been buried in March, right before the pandemic started and shut everything down. And his wife had been able to attend his burial, but had not been able to come back to Arlington, had not been able to travel back to Arlington to see his headstone. So when she reached out to me on social media on Memorial Day, she said, "I'm not even sure of the grave number. I'm not even sure of whether there's a headstone there or not, but he's in the back of section 60, and can you try to find him?" And I ended up being the very first person to visit his headstone. And that was an incredible, moving experience for me. I will never forget it. And I visit Ryan's gravestone every single time I go to Arlington now. And I've kept in touch with his wife a little bit over the course of the year, because it's incredibly special to help someone in their grieving process, and to connect with them in that personal way from across the country, someone I'll probably never meet. And to be able to honor someone who I never had the opportunity to meet is really special.
Well, you in a way you've met this person that sacrificed their life, and I
Yeah,
think
I've read all about him. I
yeah.
went back and read about where he was from and what unit he served in and where he was stationed. And it does, you're right. It does kind of feel like you know that person once you take the time to really learn their name and to think about them, and you become part of their story.
Ryan, I feel like in a similar sense, millions of Americans have gotten to meet Travis Manion because of your efforts and just what you've done with that legacy. Is there a story or something that isn't as, I guess, solemn that you'd like to tell us about Travis? I'd love to, if it's funny or just to learn more about this amazing human being that left us too soon.
Wow. Well, yeah, I always say, it's sometimes hard to articulate this idea that so many people have this connection with my brother because of the growth and size of our organization in his name. But he was my brother, right? He was my brother. We were 15 months apart, so we were very close.
Oh, wow.
And Irish twins. And, we grew up in a military family. My dad's a retired colonel in the Marine Corps. I was born in Camp Lejeune, and we moved a lot when I was young. And so I always say that Travis was kind of my built-in best friend, because no matter where we went, I knew that he was going to be there. And this isn't necessarily like an unknown story. I've talked about it, and not so much a story, but just to give a general idea of, I think sometimes, we can put people on pedestals when they leave us, and we're all humans, we're all flawed, but there was something very special about my brother, and I recognized that when I was young. Being the older sibling, I was the one looking up to Travis, and I realized that the things that Travis did when he was 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 years old, he was putting himself in a position to become the man he was going to become the Marine he was going to become. And I watched in awe as my brother went from a chubby kid whose nickname was Pork Chop in 8th grade
I can
to
relate.
by sophomore year of high school, he was 189 All-American wrestler. And that didn't happen by chance. That happened because he put in hard work, determination, and dedication. And that's not something that's always out there. I certainly wasn't like that when I was in high school. And so I feel so incredibly proud that I had someone like that in my life. And I also feel, again, this responsibility to pass on some of his lessons to our next generation, because, I think it's important to know you can join the Marine Corps, you can join the Army, you can join the military, but you've got to set yourself up for success. And that comes when you're young, and you've got to start making the right choices. And I'll never forget, after Travis was killed, my uncle said something that perfectly summed up who Travis Manion was. He said, Travis was big in the little things. And because he was big in the little things, he was even bigger in the big things when it really mattered. And, for me, I try to instill that in myself and also my kids, like, be big in the little things every single day. And that's what Travis did. He was big in the little things. And that's why on April 29th, 2007, he was big in the big moment, in the moment. And we're all going to have a day that defines us. We're all going to have that day. It may not be in the, the battlefields in Iraq, but we're all going to have a day where we make that choice to do the right thing. So I take those little lessons from my brother and I carry them with me, and I try to pass them on to everybody that I can.
Well, it's such an amazing way to share, just what kind of human being Travis was. And we say in the military, we say something very similar. We say, listen, you don't know how you may not know how you're going to react specifically until that moment comes, but you make that choice years before that. When you join the military and you become a part of this brotherhood, you made that choice. And it's such an amazing thing to just kind of hear the backstory on someone who, like your brother, has done such an amazing thing and paid that sacrifice. That the guys that I served with that didn't come home, or didn't come home alive, I think back of just little conversations and little impacts, or at the moment that felt little in my life, and then put it all in context. And it makes perfect sense that we say that, little things like the good die young, or they take the best
Mm-hmm.
first. That's not the truth. That's not necessarily fate. That what we realize is that groundwork is laid along the way. There's a reason why they're the ones who are in that place in that moment. And it's something really to be in awe of, I guess.
Absolutely.
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm excited to end this on a happy note. And I think all of this, for you and I, Ron, this is a happy thing. We can talk about these things, and it
Totally.
sounds solemn, but it is a happy thing for us, because we get to remember these people that were such a big part of our lives. For you, a family member, and for me, friends that were part of my life for a decade. But for everyone listening, and Emily, I think you understand this as well. Memorial Day is a day of celebration. And for you all to go out and put this much effort into sharing these heroes with the rest of us, I look forward to it. I look forward to seeing the pictures. I look forward to reading the stories and getting to know some of these people. And I can't thank the two of you and everyone that works with you enough for making this possible. Because, even without COVID, paying tribute all the way in DC is not easy to do. And I think many of us do have friends and family that are buried there.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for helping to spread the word for us, and, looking forward to people getting involved, whether they're at Arlington with us or not. Just sharing along with these names and sharing them with others, learning the names and passing them on.
Ryan, how can people be involved or learn more about Travis Manion Foundation?
You could head over to travismanion.org. The Honor Project is scrolling right on the homepage, so you can learn how you can get involved. Outside of, our volunteer is closed down. We are capped out. We have hundreds of volunteers at Arlington this year. But there's other ways you can be a part of this effort. We have incredible flags from Flags of Valor. an incredible veteran-owned company that is making us small wooden flags. Those are available for purchase as well. So if you want to purchase some on your own and take them to your local VA cemetery, if you want to just display it in your house as your way to commemorate Memorial Day. And along with that, again, we have on our website, we have a portal with stories of hundreds and hundreds of fallen service members. Grab one of those stories and share that story out as well. So lots of ways you can get involved and get involved in our activation efforts throughout the year. TravisManion.org, you can join our mission.
And Emily, tell us again how to track the Honor Project on social media.
So you can follow along on Memorial Day weekend using the hashtag The Honor Project. And you'll be seeing photos shared by our volunteers, and we'll be sharing it along the way. And there, as Ryan said, there's still plenty of time and plenty of ways to get involved. Most specifically, if you know someone who's buried at Arlington, register at their grave so we can visit it and share it over Memorial Day weekend.
Fantastic. Thank you both so much for joining, and I look forward to seeing the stories come through.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having us.
Honoring those who have sacrificed their lives, as we just learned, isn't just a solemn feeling of loss and gratitude. It also includes the barbecues and a day at the lake or a baseball game. Just remember when you have that freedom to take a moment, or maybe even longer, to say thank you, to remind your friends and family of why you're able to enjoy those things. I want to thank Ryan and Emily and everyone involved with the Honor Project for reminding us of the special people that allow us to celebrate this special day. To hear more stories like this, visit foxnewspodcast.com and be sure to check back next week for a brand new Proud American story. I'm your host, Johnny Joey Jones, and thanks for listening.